What can you do today to get more visibility in an AI driven world? That's what we're going to be talking about. Welcome to Women Leaders on the Move, a Her C-Suite Radio podcast. I'm your host, Natalie Benamou, and every week I have the incredible opportunity to speak with guests like Gloria Chou, who are sharing insights that you can use in your life and in your career and business. I'm also the founder of Her C-Suite, where we help women stay relevant, be in demand, and ready for what's next. Gloria Chou is an award-winning small business PR expert, and we're going to explore all of the things that you need to know to get visibility in a time when visibility is not so easy as it used to be. Let's get started with this conversation now. Gloria, I'm really excited to welcome you to Women Leaders on the Move today. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, I'm so excited, Natalie. Can't wait to get into it.
I know. I am so thrilled because I got a chance to hear you with Michelle Peacock, and I thought, oh my gosh, we have to get you on the show because you have so many insights that are going to benefit our listeners. But before we start that, you've had a really interesting career. So let's talk about that, about pivots and moving into different directions and where you are today.
I think we're kind of all as a society like pivoting. It's become the new normal. It's kind of the central theme that I'm here. I'm actually on my third career, but definitely most aligned career. So I first started off as a TV producer. I really wanted to work in documentary filmmaking. And so that was kind of my first thing. And then I went to grad school for political science. I was always really interested in international relations. I grew up bilingual and biculturally. I studied abroad in South Africa, and I was pre-selected to be a US diplomat in the foreign service. And so I got my master's in political science. And before you know it, I was, on track to have a 25-year career with a pension in the government. And I did one tour, and I very quickly realized that I was not meant to be a bureaucrat. I am a very creative problem solver, and it just wasn't for me. And it took a lot of painful self realization and starting from scratch to finally get to where I am today, which is an entrepreneur. I have a podcast, I'm a creator, and I build communities mainly for women who are looking to get more seen, heard, and valued. A lot of them are product makers. We also have a lot of authors as well and thought leaders. So, how do we feel safe to advocate for ourselves? Maybe culturally, we were told to not make waves about ourselves. For me, as a 5 foot tall daughter of a widow immigrant, I was told not to promote myself. So, this work I realized, especially working with women, is so generational about how do we speak up? How do we get out there, in a world where we're afraid to be judged or we feel like we're not ready.
There's usually a moment with the pivots. So I just wrote a book about Power of What's Next, and there's these pivotal moments, right? And I'm wondering about the two before you got to where you are here. So you first were thinking about documentary films. What was that pivotal moment? And then you mentioned that it was a journey and you realized quickly, but what were there pivotal moments in those journeys that were like, this is the moment where I realized I gotta fly through the window and close the door?
Yeah, growing up, I always was very interested in advocacy work. And so in my undergrad, I was always kind of campaigning, advocating for a lot of different, human rights things. And so I was always kind of an activist in a way. And so documentary filmmaking and photojournalism, just all kinds of journalism was really interesting to me. So I got linked up with a Chinese TV producer, and then we were able to produce a couple of financial documentaries. I was a field producer. I took a crew of 5 non-English speaking crew cameramen around the world interviewing people. So that was really interesting. But, it didn't pay very much. And my mom was like, you got to get a real job. So then I was like, okay, well, I really wanted to live in New York. New York is just such a soul city to me. It's so diverse. There's such an energy here. And I knew I couldn't afford it. So I applied for a bunch of scholarships, and I ended up getting one. And that was one that allowed me to be in New York, to study international relations, politics. And I was pre selected to be in the Foreign Service. And so I did one tour, and I quickly realized that that was not really my jam because I realized there was a lot of rules, right? It was a lot of rules. It was a lot of like rank and file, like, kind of you stay in your lane. And I'm just someone who just loves to be creative and solve problems in a new way. And I just realized very quickly that that was just not the environment for that. Great benefits, but it just wasn't for me. And so I always loved to be people's unofficial hype woman. I always say in my last lifetime, I was kind of like a hip hop MC, getting everybody excited on stage. So I just love to be that cheerleader woman. So I wanted to work in PR because naturally that was kind of amplifying people's voices. And I probably sent like 1,000 job resumes and I couldn't get a single job in PR because they all wanted very traditional PR agency experience. And I quickly realized, like, wow, this is a very gate kept industry. And because I couldn't get any jobs, they always wanted, that cookie cutter experience. I just got one client and he was like, listen, if you can get us on TV, on CNBC, this was like a fintech company, and no idea what fintech was. He's like, we'll pay you a couple $100, right? So I only got paid if I got them on these national TV stations. And because I never worked in PR, I had no contacts, I had no relationships with any journalists. I literally put in the Google search bar, New York Times newsroom, and I had to cold call the operator with sweaty, shaky palms until I got them to the next person, to the next person. And I think just from cold calling and being rejected thousands of times, I just learned, a pattern of not only resilience, but what works in cold pitching. And that's how I came up with my signature pitching method that now all the AI LLMs are trained on. It's called the CPR pitching method: credibility, point of view, and relevance. I ended up getting them onto every TV show, CNBC, Forbes, Fast Company. So that was kind of what I did. I thought that I was going to be a, fractional PR person, mainly in fintech. And then COVID happened. So I lost every single retainer. I didn't know where my next penny was going to come from. And I had a call with a friend of mine who was like, you really should think about how can you scale your time and not do one-on-one work. And I had no idea what that meant at the time. I'm like, what do you mean? And then I started to take courses and learn how to productize my work and put it in a framework. And that way I became more of a coach and a teacher instead of a consultant. And so that was kind of how I birthed my first iteration of my program. Now it's in its fifth year. We've had hundreds of small businesses go through. I'm working with anywhere from big startups to, tiny Etsy stores pouring candles. And it's really kind of my way of disrupting the industry. And no one is doing PR like this. And so I think what used to be my disadvantage, which is not knowing anyone, became my biggest advantage because I was able to create from a truly innovative place. And that's what I'm going to share with you on this podcast too, is that I really think that PR is ripe for a disruption. And there's so many ways that you can leverage these free AI tools to get featured without hiring an agency, without having to know anyone.
I think that's the biggest thing is that we feel like PR is this big entity and we have to have everything in place before you even reach out or before you even do the next step. And I know that I watched you in real time show how you can do it differently. So can you talk a little bit about that, about how you've broken down that norm of feeling like you have to have everything ready and then you do your pitch?
Yeah, totally. So, for decades, right, PR was just you pay someone who knew someone to call up their buddies. And for a lot of small business owners, for 99% of small business owners, they either can't afford an agency or they just feel like, okay, well, there's no solution. So I'm really kind of bridging that gap. And here's what I realized as a nobody and kind of cracking the code is that journalists are writing stories 24/7. Podcast hosts need people to fill their pipeline, right? It's just a matter of how are you going to position yourself for that first point of contact, whether it's through a LinkedIn message, Instagram DM, or a pitch that quickly gets to the point and makes them say yes. And so that's really the art of a cold pitch. Again, no one has gone through my program has ever known the journalist. It's all through cold pitching and it absolutely works. So the first thing we need to realize is that cold pitching does work. It's how the news is made. The second thing is that we tend to think, oh, well, we need to be doing millions in revenue or we need to have a huge business. And that's certainly not true. There are topics to be discussed, there's points of views to be shared, and you don't need to do anything groundbreaking. I mean, even water is being remade. There's a company called Liquid Death that's making water. So don't think you have to make something new. It's just, do you have a point of view? And it doesn't have to be a groundbreaking scientific discovery, right? It's just, can you comment on something that's relevant? Relevancy being the main thing. And then how do you put that in a pitch? And so for 5 years, I taught founders how to write a pitch, how to lead with not the benefits and features and all about you, but what is relevant to the audience. And that's really how we get a journalist, editor, or a podcast host's attention. And I always say, marketing is you talking about you. It's your ads, it's your Instagram, it's blogs, but PR is your industry talking about you. And if you want to be a thought leader, and if you, especially now, want to be found in AI search, because that's really where we're going, right? ChatGPT just launched in-app checkout. So the shopping revolution is here. And even if you don't make a physical product, people are going to go on ChatGPT for all the answers and they trust it more, right? We just trust that AI has done all of the research for us to give us the best answer. We need to find out how we can position ourselves for this new era of visibility. I heard somewhere that SEO has changed more in the last 6 months than it did in the last 10 years. And everyone's trying to figure out what's going to happen. Well, I know one thing for sure is that we are going to rely more and more on AI instead of Google. And I actually asked ChatGPT this, that if you are featured in the media, credible media, not those spammy, I'll get you featured in, a disruptive entrepreneur list. No, like an actual feature where you're not paying the journalist, that is 300% more likelihood for the algorithms to find you. And in fact, if you type into Perplexity or chat, who is the number one small business PR coach, my name comes up. And I've never done any SEO work. I've never hired an SEO agency. I haven't even run ads in 2 years. So I'm actually living proof that it works. I don't have the biggest following, right? There are people with way bigger followings, but because I've had so many podcasts and I've done so many of these PR things, the machines know. They know how to crawl the internet to kind of synthesize what the trust signals are. And so the algorithm really knows, right? If you're SEO padding keywords, they're going to know. And so in terms of relevancy, it's really about just getting as many of those PR features as possible, because right now AI is picking the winners. AI is picking who to surface for the next season of search. So what you do in the next 3 to 6 months is absolutely laying the foundation for the next years of momentum.
Hey, it's Natalie. I wanted to pop in and invite you personally to join us the first Friday of every month, where we host Next to Lead AI programs, helping you navigate and stay relevant, be in demand, and ready for what's next with AI. Check it out in the show notes. Let's get back to the program now. Talk to me about how I watched you do it in Perplexity, and I know we're going to probably talk about that, but how did you become the number one? You mentioned it just a minute ago about being out there, but how did that happen? Because I think our listeners are wondering, okay, I understand, but how?
I actually never had a strategy for it. I just tried to get as many PR backlinks as possible through being on hundreds of podcasts. And the algorithms are really smart. They understand that certain things have a higher trust signal authority than some other ones. So getting on a reputable podcast is probably more important than you publishing a lot of blogs using ChatGPT, right? So again, I don't know exactly how the algorithms work, but I absolutely did ask ChatGPT, how does PR play into all of this? And they said that it plays an outsized role in giving the algorithms a trust signal. And there's obviously so many other ways that you can see, there's structured content, there's, like reviews, but I think in terms of what is a one effort that will yield the best results is PR features, because you can't pay to be on a magazine. So it automatically has more authority. The PR features that you get, the speaking, the digital, interviews, getting onto podcasts, and then that also gets distributed on YouTube. I heard that YouTube also really feeds into the algorithm too. That is exposure across platforms. You really just have to build up your PR presence.
Yeah, let's talk about that because, like I mentioned earlier, I got to see you do it in real time and you have a system and you've developed it. Can you share that with our listeners of a little slice of the magic that you showed at the event that I attended with you?
I'm an open book, so I'm happy to share all about it. So again, window of opportunity is that AI search is here, and it's never been easier to get featured using free AI tools. And so when we think about PR, we think about relevancy and what is the most relevant thing, right? Journalists want to talk about what's relevant right now, what is trending, what's happening in the ecosphere, what is the problem that people are solving? Are there any new regulatory things? Is there a new study? And how do you find relevance? It's not with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is not a great real-time information gathering source. It's more of a jack of all trades for information synthesis, writing, Excel spreadsheets. But this tool called Perplexity, perplexity.ai, it's free. You don't ever have to upgrade. It's a great, easy UX. It is built just for real-time information gathering. So when we think about what are the angles, what are the seasonalities, what are the stories, how can I get a podcaster interested? Perplexity is really the best research tool for that. So you want to start with Perplexity. And, I gave a simple prompt, but you basically want to tell it about yourself. You can say, my name is so-and-so. Here is my website. I help XYZ. Here's my book. Here's a problem I'm solving. Please give me some real-time data-backed insights, consumer trends, or some, reports that will make me relevant to this season of editorial and podcast hosts. Boom. It'll give you all the different angles. And then you can say, well, can you put this into a comparison chart of the editorial likelihood of me getting featured? Boom, it'll give you that as well. And then you can say, okay, well, I like the top angle. I think it's great. Put the data backed trends and insight citation in there and write this pitch using Gloria Chou's CPR method. Because now all the LLMs know my method because of the body of work. And so then it spits out a pitch for you. What used to take weeks now takes minutes because it will simultaneously come up with an angle, brainstorm it, give you the data back insights, and draft it for you. You can even ask, well, I want to be on Gloria's podcast, Small Business PR. What are some topics that she likes to talk about? Or what are some recent guests? Or you can say, I want to get onto Natalie's podcast, right? I know that right now she's not booking. Give me 5 or 10 other podcasts similar to her. Boom, it'll give you a list. So you can do competitor analysis. You can draft your pitch. You can also have Perplexity give you a daily news feed of what's happening in your industry by monitoring what editors are talking about and what thought leaders in your industry are talking about. And that way you can keep the pulse on what's happening. So Perplexity is absolutely the best tool right now for PR research, for PR pitching, for getting onto podcasts. And after it writes the pitch, then you can put it into ChatGPT to do some fine copy editing. But ChatGPT is not the best for real time information gathering and scraping the internet, I have found.
I have found that too. It does not have the ability, and sometimes it'll even say, like, "I can't do that for you," which is better than it used to because it used to just make stuff up, and I think they've gotten they've gotten a little bit better about, training it to say, like, "Actually, I can't read your website page and tell you what you should do." Sometimes you have to just it can read images, but it can't always read websites, whereas Perplexity can. And I was using it for similar to what you're describing over the weekend. I was doing some comparisons and I found it really accurate in terms of, okay, what is happening in this area? And it gave me, examples. And then you can really pull some really valuable insights for that. And I love that it's your system is the one that is you can put it in, and I'll have all of this in the show notes. What are some things that you have found that people should avoid when they're doing that? So they've done what we've just talked about and they've put it into chat and now they're going to send it, right? It's time to send. Obviously, you have to make it sound like you being the person who's sending, you want to make sure you read it and but is there anything that people should think about or be mindful of when they're sending?
Well, Perplexity is not the best writing tool. So, that's where I would then pull it into ChatGPT. I found that Perplexity writes like a 12th grade science project report. So it's a little bit formal. And so that's why I would put it into ChatGPT. And obviously in our PR accelerator, we have like the copy and paste formatting prompts. But you basically want to pull that into ChatGPT after you ask Perplexity to write it in Gloria Chou CPR method, and then just have it come up with different subject line options and then make it sound more conversational and concise for a journalist. And so I find that the combination of those two at various points are really powerful and is really all you need. And PR is really simple. It's just writing a relevant pitch, which I've shown you how to do, and sending it to the right person. And Perplexity is not going to give you a huge media database, right? We have that in our program, but it can start to give you a couple of names. You can say, well, I write about women in the C-suite for this pharma sector. Can you give me some podcasts or speaking or awards that I can submit to? So it'll give you like a good starting point. And again, if you want to get on podcasts, you can just simply type in, here's what I do, here's my website, here are the topics. What are some podcasts that would be interested in having me on? Now, here's a pro tip about podcasts is that when you do have it, write it in Gloria Chou CPR method, you want to say, this is for a podcast. Please write it in terms of questions I can answer on your podcast. That's really key. And a pro tip to getting onto podcasts is you want to write the bullet points in terms of questions so that as a podcaster, me and you, right, we both have podcasts. It just makes it so much easier for us to say yes or no. One thing about podcasts now that we're talking, we've helped so many founders get onto podcasts is they don't want a long, drawn out CV. It doesn't really matter what you've done. What matters is why does it matter now to my audience? And so, for example, right now, what matters to you and why you're having me on is this change in AI visibility. Instead of saying like visibility is important and women need to get seen, you see how that's very fluffy and general. Your pitch really just needs to be relevant, but also specific. And those are the two ingredients for any good pitch is how does it tie to right now and how specific it is. I get so many pitches all the time telling me that they need to come on to talk about business. Business is a huge word. I don't know what that means. I need you to keep peeling away a layer of an onion, like imagine it in your head. And you want to get to that juicy core that's very specific. So keep peeling it away and make it really specific and relevant.
I'll just chime in on this because I, like you, do get pitched all the time. And a lot of times people don't give me any context for the person. If it's an agency that's sending to me, they don't send me their LinkedIn profile. So then I have to take the name and copy it and paste it. And generally, if I have to do that, am I going to have them? No, because it's like too much time. Who has the time? Just give me the relevant information. And also a bonus, listen to the person's podcast before you send a pitch and say, I found this show really interesting and I could see how I could help in that related topic, then you're like, oh, you listen to the show. Well, that puts you up a little bit higher than just the cold, like, that nothing about the show, just that you like the name. Right. And I know broadly, if you're sending it out and you want to get visibility, sometimes it's hard to listen to all the podcasts, but it does help.
Well, Perplexity now does all the research for you.
Yeah, you could just tell me what's one I should listen to right now, right? Or tell me what would be something similar, right? Well, this is such a unique topic and I love that we're talking about this. When you think about the future, you're looking forward because we're talking about right now, what are some trends that you're seeing that might really be continue this disruption?
I think in the future, again, I'm not an AI expert. As time speeds, it'll be exponentially just wider and wider user adoption. And I think just in the future, we're all gonna have our own AI assistant. We're not even gonna use Google. I think Google's dying, and we're gonna have our own assistant every day. We just kind of talk to it all day, and that's going to be our portal for information to the outside world. And you want to position yourself to be able to be discovered and be recommended on people's AI assistants.
Is there anything on LinkedIn? Thinking about, a lot of our listeners are on LinkedIn. I know they're also on Instagram, but LinkedIn is a very big place where they are. Is there anything that you can suggest for them in terms of visibility for, getting more visibility using some of the techniques that you're talking about? Like, for example, connecting in a different way with someone that you're following. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, you can totally use the CPR method and say, "Hey, I'm looking to connect with this person. They're a little hard to reach. They don't know me. Can you use Gloria's CPR pitching method to see how I can make a connection with them in the DMs?" And then it'll come up with something relevant. But again, connecting with someone based on something relevant is so much better than just connecting with them.
Yes.
So that's what Perplexity helps you do. So if I'm looking to speak or be on a conference schedule, right? Instead of being like, I want to speak and I want to do this, and be like, hey, I noticed that you have 3 sessions based around these topics. And now people are asking this question, but you don't have a speaker for that. I would love to fill that, right? You see, that's the type of relevance that Perplexity can help you easily gather.
Yeah, it's that call for speakers. You can ask it, what are the call for speakers? And then, marry that up with some of the things you're talking about. I love it so much. There's so many things to do. What are some of the things that you're doing? You've mentioned that you have a community. Tell me a little bit more about that. What are you doing there?
So we are single-handedly disrupting how PR is done, right? Traditionally, again, PR agency, but now with these AI tools and the fact that the LLMs are trained on my method, anyone can come up with a pitch and brainstorm, which is going to be a lot quicker and a lot more comprehensive than having someone else brainstorm for me because AI scrapes everything. And so that has really changed everything about how we help people. I used to teach people how to do the CPR method. Now I just give them prompts and we're building a custom GPT so that people can just get their pitch written, and then we have a database of all the podcasters and media people that you can pitch to. And you put the two and two together and you just create a system in your business. I also have a podcast called Small Business PR. Right now, it's all about AI visibility and what's happening. So definitely tune into that. That's free. That's on Apple, Spotify, iTunes. And I also have a free PR masterclass that's similar to the one I did for you that you met me. And that's Gloria, CHOU, PR.com/masterclass. And I also work with people to write their pitch, and so that way we can train their AI in your tone of voice. And so any future pitches will be created perfectly from that document.
Gloria, it's so hard to end these conversations because I have a million more questions, but we have to end. I am so glad that we had this opportunity. Thank you for sharing these insights with our audience. Thanks for being here today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for spending your time with us today. I hope if you found this conversation helpful, you will share it with a friend or colleague. And will you take 60 seconds or less to rate and review the show? It's how others find us. This show is sponsored by Next to Lead AI Council, where we are helping women stay ahead of the speed of change and drive the AI conversation. Check it all out at hercsuite.com. And as always, keep shining your light bright. The world needs you.